Okay, so it's time for that series that I teased in my goals video. It's the recent releases wrap-up or roundup or new releases roundup. The thumbnail and title of this video have a title, Current Me has done all the research and the notes, but my marketing brain is horrible. I have no idea what the title of this is, but the premise, the goal is after a month of new releases, I go into Goodreads and YouTube and I compile the gist of what people think about 10 to 15 new releases. This month I have 12 new releases that came out in January, and I have basically their average rating and how many people have rated it, the good, the bad, the ugly, to maybe help you decide, did you miss out on releases? And I'll let you know if while I was doing research which ones I ended up deciding to buy and put on my radar that might not have been there before because I was waiting to hear the buzz. So this was a fun experiment. It took me a while to compile all the thoughts because, there were videos to watch and reviews to read, and I will have all of the videos that I reference down in the description. They'll either be in a playlist or by each book, and each book will have its Goodreads page. And I will also have a blog post that I used to actually initially compile books that I wanted to look into. And also, shout out to the people in my Discord who were telling me all of their anticipated releases, because that's also part of how I compiled my list of things to look into, in addition to just, seeing what's been going around. Obviously, I'm filming this February 2nd. A lot of people maybe haven't put up their wrap-ups yet, but I have done the best that I can, and let's get into it. We're first going to talk about the one new release that I have read, and then we're going to go kind of in publication order. So the one that I've read is Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. This currently has an average rating of 3.41 out of 79 ratings. It's not surprising to me that this is low because of its narrative structure. I think it's going to be very polarizing for people who pick it up, and I talk about that at length in my review. But in general, the people who liked it really liked the payoff in the narrative structure and even how much work it was because of how it portrayed humanity. A lot of what I like about it is what people who seem to like this book really like, and the things that people did not like about this book was the density of the language, was how confusing it was, how they really didn't understand where or when they were, which valid. I was very confused, and I think because of that confusion, they could never get to the point of payoff. So your mileage is going to vary based off how much work you want to put into that book, I believe. I think it's got potential to be a new sci-fi classic. I think it's doing what sci-fi is supposed to do, and I think it's doing it with a very unique and important lens with really good themes that we need to talk about. I have linked down below my review, but also Audrey at Perpetual Pages did a wrap-up where they talk about this, and they have a very well fleshed out review on Goodreads, and Audrey is always better with words than I am, so I highly recommend checking out all of those places. This is a book that I was really looking forward to and did not disappoint me. The next one we'll talk about came out on January 4th. This is The Starless Crown by James Rollins. Yes, and this has an average rating of 3.87 out of 836 ratings. This is one of Tor's early releases of the year. I have linked a couple standalone reviews in the playlist, and Bethany and Rachel from Shades of Orange have done wrap-ups and have left Goodreads reviews, so there's a lot of varying opinions. We have everything from like an average 3-star to a pretty high 4-star that I have seen. I haven't really seen a lot of, I really love this is the new big thing, and I haven't seen as many, this is atrocious, I hated reading this. The general thing I saw amongst all of the reviews was that this is a fantasy book that has an intriguing sci-fi fantasy combo, but follows a lot of traditional fantasy tropes and does a lot of things that are well loved in the fantasy genre. It's multi-POV, there's a prophecy, a chosen one, there's impending doom, like an apocalypse is coming. It is going to happen. And it's very action-packed to the point where multiple reviewers who had read this were almost fatigued by the action and the repetitiveness of it, whereas some people couldn't put it down. It was one or the other. And I think part of it, everyone agreed that it was a bit long, and I think that was normally what caused some people to take off half or a whole star. There's also important stuff to reference here in that there is disability representation, but it then also follows the kind of harmful trope of magically curing the disability. I think your mileage is going to vary there. I saw someone who actually really liked it and it made sense in the world building, and then I saw another reviewer who was like, I really wish we would stop using this trope. I think there were other ways to solve the problem that was presented in the text. But in general, if you want a really action-packed, tropey fantasy time with a new setting, with new magic, I think this is probably worth picking up. It's 560 pages, and I believe is a start to a new series. Next up is the one that has the most ratings, and I think maybe the highest average rating, like for the number of ratings it has, and that's Where'd the Drowned Girls Go? 4.23, 3,652 ratings as of preparing for this video. I have not read any of these novellas in the Wayward Children series. I know they are portal fantasy, and they are all novellas, and they are about children either being in these other worlds or being back in our world and dealing with the repercussions of that. And this is a book that takes place in our world, but apparently at a sister school. And this sister school is less like the normal school that I think the other novellas have, which try to accept the children as they are, and this one more is like, we are reassimilating you for society. And I think it's about what is it to be normal. And I have heard from Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany, I think both in her wrap-up and reading her Goodreads review, that there is fat phobia in this and that it is represented very realistically and handled very well. I've also seen many reviews where people thought that it was too excessive and didn't like it, but I think on a whole, a lot of like fat reviewers who have read this have really identified and appreciated how this was done on the page with this character. I also know this character is Cora. I don't know what that means, but if you've read this series, you probably know who Cora is. I think she showed up in book 5 when I was doing my research. So basically, I have seen some people say this is their favorite in the series, and I've also seen people who didn't like the books that Cora was in not liking this as much. Something that did perk my interest is apparently at one point Cora was a mermaid, and that seems pretty cool. This is a series of books I do want to pick up eventually, but I just haven't gotten there yet. So I don't know if that helped you decide if you need to continue on. I do know some people who didn't like the last book really liked this one. So I think this is just a series where it's handling so many different things from different angles. It's just not everything's going to be a hit and resonate with everyone. Next up is a very, not controversial, but polarizing book release, and that's To Paradise. This is from the author who did A Little Life, a very popular book. I haven't read either of them, but this has an average rating of 3.86 and 2,608 ratings, and actually a lot of my friends have read this book, and I think one review I saw, though, compared this to like Cloud Atlas means 1984. I have read 1984, and I have seen Cloud Atlas, and I know approximately how this book is structured, so I can kind of see that. I have down below many varied reviews from I love this is as good as A Little Life to this is like a 2.5-star experience. So I have all of that down below if you want to hear that for yourself from a wide range of people. What I know is that this book essentially feels like 3 books in one, and they are thematically connected, and characters have similar names, but they aren't really interlinked stories, and they each take place at the turn of a century. So we have alternate historical fiction, and then we also have sci-fi future dystopian. So that's the range and scope. I know it's a tome, it's over 700 pages. And like I said, I've heard people who really liked it and liked that this was a broader, zoomed out scope than A Little Life. And then I've heard people not really liking some parts more than others because there's like 3 books in here. So some people really liked the 3rd book, which is like half of the size of the book. And other people really didn't like maybe the 2nd or the 1st part. So I think your mileage is really going to vary here. I've heard a lot of this was good, but not as good as A Little Life, or not really worth the page count. But I've also heard the opposite, especially from people who really like the writing style of this author, and I think that's something that could really keep you going, is if you really like her writing. So yeah, hopefully that helps you decide. It's just been fascinating seeing the wide array of opinions. I also did put in a review, which is more of a 2-minute parody song of someone who was very bored with this book. So like I said, wide ranging of opinions for this one. Next up, we've got Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is the first in a duology. It has an average rating of 4.26. Did that beat out? It did beat out Where the Drowned Girls Go, but it only has 2,482 ratings, which is still quite a lot. People are really liking this book. I believe it's marketed as young adult, but I'm not positive. It's for sure, though, a fantasy reimagining inspired by a Chinese mythological folktale. And I have 2 reviews down below, one standalone and one part of a recent reads, where Tammy basically just goes off about how much she loves it, and honestly, her talking about this book made me want to buy it. I also have a weekly update from Judith where she talks about this book and her experience with reading it. It's kind of a long book. It's 500 pages, and from what I can tell, it has the feeling of maybe kind of not a short story collection, but it changes pacing and focus throughout the narrative. So at some points you might feel it's slow, and other points it might feel fast, and it might be jarring in those transitions. Because I know a lot of reviews really had a fun time at the beginning, but didn't really have a good time at the end. And I think a big thing, though, that must be talked about for some readers is that apparently it's not a fantasy romance, but the romantic parts of this book are very important. They drive the narrative, and it has a love triangle. Now, here's the thing. Everyone who mentioned the love triangle are people who traditionally don't like love triangles and loved this love triangle. They said that you don't know who she's going to pick and that the romance worked in a way that they were really invested in, and it evoked a lot of emotion for them. And these are people who have not typically been liking YA love triangles. So I think that's really impressive. It actually makes me really want to pick it up. I don't know a lot about the original myth, but I know it's more of a reimagining because the moon goddess does not, I think, in the myth traditionally have a daughter. And this is also going to be a book that has like training montages and fighting action scenes. So if you like those sort of things in your book, I think that will also be a good selling point here. Next one we're going to talk about is not one of the very popular releases, but it was put on my radar in my Patreon, and that's The Amber Crown by J.C. Bedford. I think that's what it is. My handwriting made that R look like an N, but I don't think that's what happened. But this has an average rating of 3.5 with only 36 ratings, so we're going to have to take that rating with a very big grain of salt. This came out January 11th, and this, guys, is a 480-page standalone fantasy that just came out. And I know some people are always really looking for standalone fantasy, so I'm here to tell you about it. I don't think it's necessarily one that's for me, but there are definitely tropes here that I'm going to talk about that maybe this should be on your TBR. So the main premise of this one is that these three main characters must go on a quest to fulfill, I don't know, this task by their dead king so that a tyrant doesn't take over the throne. I think they have to find the queen and her unborn child or her born child. I don't know. There's a quest. Our three main characters have to go do this, and that is the plot. It's told in very short chapters, and it switches between the characters very quickly. I know some people in their reviews said this was a page turner they could not put down, and other people were not invested in the plot or the characters and felt that it dragged. So this feels like one where if you are plot driven and like the trope candy of the quest, it'll be great, or you're someone who really likes the characters, are invested, but if you don't like the tropes and if you're not connected to the characters, it might not work out well for you. I do also want to highlight that a lot of people had issues at the beginning or DNF'd very early on because of sexual assault representation and general representation of racism and misogyny. I don't know if the book just has those things in there because it's more of a historical fantasy, and if it would be like, I don't know how it's handled on the page, so I'm not saying that this is a racist or misogynistic book or a book that handles these things poorly, but a lot of people did stop reading this book for those reasons, like more than one, to the point where I eventually did write it down. So I just want that on your radar too. But if you like a quest fantasy, and I think the main characters are like an assassin, a healer, and a guard who feels like he needs redemption and revenge because he's the guard, that's the reason why the king is dead, it could be a tropey good time. Next up's the Orbit release of the month. I think it's the main Orbit release. I didn't have another one on my list, and that's Engines of Empire. 3.87 average rating, and I was surprised it only had 83 ratings because this has been on my radar, and I remember when Alan put up his review video, which I recommend going to watch it. It will be down below. This is like has the aesthetic of a steampunk fantasy. It has cool tech in this fantasy world, and I believe there's these guilds, although Alan says they're basically just interchangeable with noble houses, but there are institutions of power and there are these technologies, and I think that leads into interesting themes of technical logical oppression and who gets to have the technology and the relationship between the tech and magic and the religion, because there's definitely still magic in the world that's related to the religion, but everything's run by the technology. So there's a really interesting world here and a cool aesthetic. I was also told that this is good for people who liked the Powder Maid trilogy and who like John Gwen and Brent Weeks. I like Brent Weeks, so that intrigues me, and that it's a very action-packed book with a explosive ending and an anime-esque prologue. So it seems like this is a book that if you are in the mode for a book that completely encaptures you, you cannot put it down, this could be a really fun time. If you're someone who likes to have some space to breathe, this might be one where you have some issues, because that was something I was seeing in people's reviews, that they didn't get to latch onto the characters and be in their heads enough because of the pacing potentially. There is a character in here though that I'm very interested in. This is one of the books that I actually do want to look into based off the reviews I saw. It explores family dynamics. I believe our main characters are a mother and the three children, although I think the children are older. I think it's like a family where the mother's like, in her 50s and like her kids are like in their 20s, so it's that type of family. And one of the kids is like the trope or like the archetype of a really big guy who's supposed to be like, the brute force, but all he wants to do is tinker with his technology. Like, I love the aesthetic of that. I hope he's as cool as I think he is. So I am really interested in this. I'm in general, a lot of it has good buzzword for me. The only thing that I'm cautious about is that if it's too plot driven, if it's too fast, I sometimes can be left wanting with character work, but I'm interested. And hopefully if you are like me, this also interests you. Next up, we have the second book that has been compared to Cloud Atlas on this list, and that is How High We Go in the Dark, with a 4.05 rating out of 1,349 ratings. This is a sci-fi release that came out this month, sci-fi standalone, and this is definitely, I think, a thematic, ideas, ponderous book. Basically, everyone had nothing good to say about the character work. Sometimes people didn't have anything bad to say, but no one said, I loved this book because of the characters. One review straight up was like, I liked what the characters represented and the metaphor behind these different characters, but it was not the characters that made people really like this story. This is a pandemic book. The plot of it is that a pandemic has happened and this is how humanity deals with it, and it's a much bigger deal than our current one. And it looks like it's told in very vignette style, almost short story-esque form. And that really intrigues me. Like, hearing that, I'm almost more interested in this than I was before, because like I've said recently in other videos, I've been reading a lot of The World is Ending books lately, and a lot of them with very similar themes, but this one seems like it might have a different take and have a good amount of heart and compassion to go with the sadness and the grief. That said, some people thought it was more bleak than hopeful, and I think it's one of those where if you don't connect the vignettes and if you don't feel the emotion, this book is probably more average than it is great. And I think that's going to come down to connecting with the writing style, and I do think this author has a very distinct writing style based off the reviews I've seen. Many people referenced the prose style, both for good and bad, so it's going to be one of those that works for you or doesn't, or it's just one of those things where it's a less hidden writing style chosen by the author. Up next, we have an indie published book, The Beholden. This has a 3.21 rating with 47 ratings. This is a historical fantasy with this a stunning cover. I mean, I think that's why I remembered it was coming out, because I had seen this cover. And I think a lot of the more positive parts of reviews have to do with this setting and how cool it was to travel down this river in the jungles. And one of the reviews I found lives in an area in South America where she's like, yeah, it felt like someone traveling to these villages. So this is, though, more of a quest story, which, quest journey stories are not my thing, unfortunately, so my ears are not perked, but maybe these are your buzzwords. And there are, I believe, 3 main characters. One of them is a pregnant woman, although there have been mixed responses to the representation of this woman who's pregnant in this story, but they are basically having to return a favor. They asked for a favor from this goddess, and now the goddess is like, well, now I need you to do this thing for me. And they go on this quest. And so, yeah, some people just thought this was very average. Some people didn't like the lack of tension in it, but it seemed to have a pretty cool pantheon and gods and setting. So if you're looking for a fun read, this is 544 pages. I don't know if it's a standalone or not, but I wanted to make sure I had some indie on the list, and some people in my Discord were looking forward to this one. So far the buzz is kind of lukewarm, but maybe it's your trope candy and good for you. We have another novella, Servant Mage by Kate Elliott. This is a 3.73 average rating out of 335 ratings. This is a Tor.com release, I think similar to Where the Drowned Girls Go. Tor.com just releases a lot of novellas. I have not read any of Kate Elliott's other works, but from looking at reviews, it seems like she is known for her world building. And basically all the positives for this have to do with the world building and how this is an epic fantasy in novella form. Now, that means some people liked how much time there was spent. I think it's about 176 pages, and they were content, although no one was completely satisfied with the ending. I think everyone kind of would have been okay with more. I think there was one person, and I think it was Bethany, who really liked it as it came completely as this package, but most reviews I saw wanted more, and I think part of that is we're conditioned as epic fantasy readers to be like, well, epic, big, I want to explore this more. Other good things I heard about this is that it's a very nuanced take on rebellion and the messiness of this, and I love that. So that has me intrigued. There's elemental magic, but it's elemental, so like we have fire magic, but it's not done in a way that I think is traditional. So that's a cool buzzword. I will say Judith was annoyed that this book has a dragon on the cover, and there are no dragons in the book, which I do agree. That is, that's a marketing choice, and that leads people astray. I don't know the significance of the dragon on the cover. Maybe it has other significance, but if a book has a dragon on the cover and there are no dragons, I would also be annoyed. Next up, we have a sci-fi, Light Years from Home by Mike Chen. This is 352 pages, standalone, and sci-fi with a little s. At least, based off the reviews I've seen, the sci-fi elements are there, but not the focus. It is more a family drama, which honestly, I am more interested in picking it up than I was when I first read the synopsis because of that focus. But for other people, I think they would feel teased by the sci-fi elements and that not being the focus. So in this story, from what I could tell, this family goes on this camping trip and then a kid goes missing. And for years after, the kid's sister and father are trying to prove aliens exist, and this is the reason that this kid went missing. And it kind of unfurls from there, and I think the messiness of family, and I think this alien component is the part that's the sci-fi, and 15 years after these events, the kid comes back. And I think that then also puts things into a different gear of family drama and chaos. I'm actually really interested in this one, and this author has quite a backlist. But those are the things I'd heard, and most of the negative reviews were because they wanted more sci-fi. This next one is my only self-published on the list, and it's honestly only on my radar because of people in my Discord. And then I looked into it, and I'm like, this could be really good. And then I bought it because it's only $1. And I'm like, it's only 352 pages, and I like a lot of the setting, buzzwords, and stuff. Like, I'm very interested in it. I kind of want to read it. I kind of want to throw out my TBR and try it out and see if this is like a hidden gem. But 4.82 average rating, but it's only 17 ratings. But like the positive ratings I've seen have had me kind of pumped. Like, I kind of want to see if I would have a similar experience. So this author was born in Africa. He doesn't state which country, but I have some guesses, but I don't want to speculate. But he basically implies that in his fiction, he uses a lot of the stories and folklore that he grew up with. And so this is a very heavily inspired work by African culture. And basically we have this tribe that needs to pick a new leader, and one of 3 brothers can be it, and I think it's got coming of age story vibes. This is a land that is constantly in war and turmoil. I think in general, I'm just a sucker for a coming of age epic fantasy set in a non-European setting, and I just want to try it out. So I want to just know if this will be for me, and it's not too long. It's only 362 pages, so I'm really curious about it. I'll have in the playlist the like book trailer I saw that like got me kind of hyped. But like I said, not that many people have talked about it. But this is one that I wanted to highlight because it could be a hidden gem. We don't know. So that's this video. Let me know if you liked it. This was the first run. If there's other things you would like me to highlight when I'm doing research on books, I try to stay away from big synopses things because I know in general for me, that's not why I go to pick up a book. I want to know how people felt about a book, not what is in the book itself. But this is a work in progress, so any good critiques are welcome. Let me know if any of these are now on your radar. Like I said, there are a few that I picked up while doing this that I'm really interested in. I think 4. So this was not good for my TBR, but I'm not mad about it. And if you want to leave an emoji, I mean, the last book we talked about had a lion in it, so leave me a lion emoji. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.